Hi, I'm Tom Hooper, director of Longford.
I'm Peter Morgan, the writer.
Today, people, we are privileged to have with us a former Labour cabinet minister.
We had this idea that we'd start the film over black with Jim in the presenter's voice like a radio show.
Longford, who's come to talk to us about a book he's just written entitled Saints. Frank Pakenham, Lord Longford, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So many questions to ask you, such a long and distinguished career.
I thought it was important to just get it all out there, everything about Frank Longford out there. Who is he? How old is he? What does he think? What does he do? So that an audience can just sort of settle, because he's quite an unusual character with quite unusual history, and we don't see people like that much nowadays.
Your heroes.
Yes, that's what the Saints are.
Perhaps it was an ugly device using the radio station, but it was incredibly helpful to set the drama up.
Gone to 15, the subject is Saints.
I mean, certainly Peter and I had a debate about whether to start on the title sequence which sets the crimes up or whether to start with Frank, and I think Peter was right in his first instinct that we need to encounter Frank first and set him up, and it gives him ownership of the story.
I'm assuming this is a question about Myra Hindley.
Yes, it is. How could you rub salt in the wounds of the families like
And for those of you who don't know the real Frank Longford, Jim went to incredible lengths to look as much like him as possible, spending 2 hours in makeup, applying his false nose and false chin,
Of course.
shaving his head to get that receding hairline.
You're through to Lord Longford.
And it got to the point where, when we were filming in one prison, an officer saw him walk in and got the biggest shock of his life because he thought Frank Longford had come back to life.
must decline to answer questions about that.
Simple answer, Lord Longford. Yes.
But Jim very much likes to work from the outside in. So in this title sequence, after I finished shooting the body of the film, I went back to the Moors to shoot some shots that went underneath the title cards in between the archive footage. And I was very struck returning at the end of the process by the experience of filming on the actual grave sites of where the children were buried on the moors on this wintry day in the middle of summer. And it was very interesting because the whole film had involved getting inside Longford's head in terms of his compassion towards Myra Hindley, and I'd in a way gone on a journey following his compassion. And it was very strange that as I stood on these grave sites on the moors, I had a feeling of utter anger and utter vengefulness about the crimes, which I'd never experienced with such power before. And I felt it was ironic at the end of the whole journey. I connected with an absolutely uncompromising emotion that didn't entertain much forgiveness. Those are the initials of Ian Brady actually inscribed on a rock on the moors. They used to spend a lot of time there. And that's Shiny Brook, where the main title is, where the last body was never found.
She said that she had loved Brady and still loved him. When she was cross-examined about her part in the nude photographing session with the child, Leslie Ann Downey, she said, "I offer no defense for that. It was indefensible and cruel." She said she didn't know that Brady was tape recording the session and that she was ashamed when she heard the tape played later.
Extra police were called in to keep the peace.
I think people outside the United Kingdom probably don't have an idea of the extent to which these crimes gripped the nation.
A tooth for a tooth and a lie for a lie.
In following Jack the Ripper, these were really the first serial killers that the United Kingdom had encountered, and it was the first woman serial killer that we'd ever had, and that explains Myra Hindley's extraordinary notoriety and the hatred that the British people feel about her.
I mean, the crimes are incredibly iconic. I remember when Peter first asked me to direct it, one of my best friends completely flipped and said, you know, you can't possibly consider directing a film that in any sense gives any credence to Frank's desire to forgive Myra Hindley or support her parole. And, you know, I said, but you're a Catholic, surely you believe in forgiveness? And my friend said, yes, but not for her. And I thought, well, here's this person who was born over a decade after the crimes, who still was filled with rage at the prospect of me doing any sort of story about Myra Hindley, and it reminded me of how passions run incredibly deep about her in the UK.
Have begun with prison visits.
And in fact, of all the work I've done, I think I was most... Yeah, I think in a way it was the most potentially controversial, which I think is why it made it, such a fascinating film to do. Because, if you're going to tell a story of is any human being beyond forgiveness, and you pick Myra Hindley as its subject, it tests people's idea of forgiveness to its utter limit, to its breaking point.
And Roy here, whose release we are celebrating today, has taught me that it is never too late to take up something new and to still master it. Having never so much as picked up a brush before the age of 30.
I like this transition we had from Frank collecting a prisoner from one institution, taking him to the institution of the House of Lords. The sort of bizarre contrast of two different but similar institutions.
Probably with a similar level of quality of food.
And this was actually Manchester Town Hall because it's impossible to film in the House of Lords itself.
Do you think there are more criminals in a jail or in the House of Lords? I imagine life would be quite familiar. In England, you go from public school to university to jail or House of Lords. Much the same.
Or both.
Yeah.
Just had a phone call from the governor of Holloway Prison.
Oh, what did Tree want?
Ah, the mighty tree.
How dare he ad-lib? That wasn't in the script.
It's utterly brilliant, Peter.
Matter of fact, it is.
I mean, this is an interesting scene because in sort of conventional Hollywood grammar, one would be thinking, how does one build up the prospect of Myra Hindley as this very frightening, dramatic event that's about to come, and yet Frank's reaction in character is completely relaxed about meeting her, and so I remember trying to think, how can we build the tension to that moment of the first meeting when our main character is utterly relaxed and utterly not intimidated by it. And in the end, we decided it was more important to go with Frank Longford's relaxation than to try to sort of force dramatic suspense through a character who wasn't experiencing that. In fact, for Longford, I think I'm right, Pete, he'd visited many serial killers, or many murderers by this point, so it wasn't... For him, it wouldn't have been like... It wasn't an isolated event. He'd been visiting prisoners since the 1930s.
What's the man thinking?
Harold Wilson, British Prime Minister from, I'm thinking 1964 to 72. And then again from 74 to 76.
The released murderer Prime Minister who's paid his debt to society and is now...
I was going to say those dates, but I didn't want to show off.
They could well be wrong.
I was very impressed.
I understand your charitable and philanthropic work is important to you. But holding this government together is important.
I think we got Bob back in to redo a lot of this voice, to try to get the voice close to Wilson's.
Fortunate headlines. I remember you asking the country to forgive the...
But he's Welsh, the actor,
Yeah,
and for him to get a Yorkshire accent, it's not easy.
There's an endearing childlike quality.
I like this point that Frank and Wilson make here about the fact that Longford was also famous for trying to get the nation to forgive the Germans immediately after the Second World War as Minister for Germany in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War, which has a nice similarity to the sort of Hindley quest, was trying to get the English to forgive the Germans the year after the war finished, was both far-sighted and in some sense he was ahead of his time, but also doomed to failure because it was just too early, too quick. But as a paradigm of Longford, it's rather good.
Normal circumstances, perhaps, but this is clearly a poisoned chalice. Half the inquiry would come under the auspices of education and half under the Home Office. Oh, I shouldn't have come out tonight.
Don't be silly.
After you.
Look, there's that lady from the Sunday Times who wrote those lovely things about you.
Oh?
Do you remember how much you liked her?
Oh, yes. Hello.
I like seeing the way Elizabeth manages Longford's depressive moment there.
In the next couple of weeks. That's the 21st.
You have a meeting at 4 with the...
Her appeal to his ego.
28th?
Better. I can move that one.
Oh, good, let's go for the 28th.
What shall I put down?
Just put prison visit.
And those two women in the red coats were a complete stroke of luck. Danny Kerr, my cameraman, was shooting it, and it was sort of quite bizarre that two twins in red coats, two twin grannies in red coats, walked past at the very moment he turns over.
I look at these scenes here,
Susanna Smith,
which were filmed in a disused mental hospital, if I remember.
Yeah, in Manchester, yeah.
And this was the first day's filming. In fact, this was pretty much the first shot. And I was standing just there as he turned. And I just remember how bitterly cold it was. In fact, my entire memory of filming Longford was how bitterly cold. I think I spent the whole time in a marbled blue condition, chattering teeth.
I do beg your pardon, madam.
And here, I mean, there was the same issue as I was talking about before, that there was a discrepancy between Frank's relaxation approaching Myra and my dramatic instinct to build it up, and so I hope I found a balance between that. I mean, we certainly tried music cues on that build and in the end rejected them because it always felt too out of sync with Frank. I felt the more we stuck to Frank's emotion through it, the better the storytelling became.
showed I had no remorse.
It was very hard to misrepresent Frank through the score.
Between hair colour and contrition.
No, me.
Very pleased to meet you.
Never met a lord before. What should I call you? My lord? Your Grace?
You must call me Frank.
All right. Frank. Put me on this table in the corner because it helps protect me from the lip readers.
So...
And here you're watching Vintage Morgan, which is another of his brilliantly odd couplings.
I see.
Although we weren't married, we were together for...
This was the moment when I read the script where I thought, my God, this is a brilliant idea. It's just such a bizarre relationship
see one another, just like married prisoners.
of two such different people.
Well, if that's what you desire, of course I will do all I can to help you. But I have to say, even though I'm not your solicitor, I don't think it's a good idea.
Why not?
Because whatever it is you wish to achieve by seeing him, it will almost certainly elude you. If it's private conversation or intimate contact you're after, you won't get it. You'll be surrounded by prison officers and guards at all times. And then there's the question of public reaction. If for the press to get hold of it, they'd have a field day, which might have a profoundly detrimental effect on any future chances of parole.
Parole?
On that word parole, we cross the line because it's such a extraordinary concept to Myra Hindley at this stage, the idea that she could ever entertain parole.
Your case is Mr. Brady's, and although he sentenced him the rest of his natural life, he made it quite clear that in your case it could be reviewed. Now, the average life sentence is currently 21 years. Parole can be applied for after a third of that time. So you can make your first application 6 years from now.
Are you serious?
Perfectly serious.
There's a softness and a femininity to Samantha Morton that I was never sure about. The photographs that we have of Myra Hindley, and what one hears is quite a hard, quite a masculine, sort of handsome woman, strong-boned.
What a pretty smile you have.
What?
I said, what a pretty smile.
It's the first kind thing anyone said to me in months.
There's a vulnerability to Sam as well that I think is important. And and she brought something which I suspect is not 100% accurate, but is incredibly truthful. I think for that reason, her performance is, as powerful as it is.
So, is there anything I can send you that would make things more comfortable?
And also, I think Sam was very
And music.
keen to save her hardness up for later. And I remember when we talked about it, she always felt that the more she could hold back on that, so that when we see it in the moment of betrayal, it comes as a complete shock.
What for?
When you come out.
And the better that, the stronger that moment would be.
Yes, of course.
When will you come again?
But it was interesting directing them both, because they both actually came to it in a very different way. I mean, I think Jim, as an actor, was terribly concerned about getting the externals right, and from that working inwards. And I remember Pete saying that the first time they talked about it, Jim kept saying, "But how will I don't look anything like him? How will I look like him?" And Sam was quite the reverse, and concerned entirely with trying to capture it from the inside. And actually, when I pushed her to look more like Myra Hindley, just wasn't as interested. And it's interesting that the two actors share screen space, coming at it in a completely different way, and with such powerful results.
Murdered 3 children.
Woman who came under the spell of a man who murdered 3 children.
That's rubbish.
I spoke to the prison governor afterwards. She's quite convinced that Myra Hindley was corrupted by Ian Brady, and to consider them as equals is a great mistake.
Dada, except that she procured those children, knowing exactly what would happen to them. Never got into the car without a woman present.
The judge made a clear distinction at the trial that Ian Brady was the initiator of these crimes and the actual killer. Myra Hindley was merely a dominated and corrupted accomplice.
Distinction's irrelevant. Murderer and accomplice are equally guilty in the eyes of the law.
Killers of this kind almost always have a prior history of offending. Myra Hindley had nothing, not even a blemish.
And wasn't there a tape?
What tape?
At the trial, I seem to remember there was a tape where one heard the dreadful things they did to the little girl. And that it was Myra Hindley's voice one could hear.
This tape was the clinching evidence in the trial, in terms of it was the only thing that put Myra Hindley in the room with a child at the time. And
well, I mean, the tape being played in court was
so that's
absolutely legendary, and that's what made her quite so unforgivable, because they heard her voice with these suffering children.
Thanks again for your visit, for the books you sent me. I've finished the
Now, this is where, the film became particularly special for me. I was interested in the relationship between a penal reformer and a serial killer, of course, but it was the religious quest and the spiritual dimension of their connection that made it so unfashionable to think about now in 2006, and so special to me, and to try and explore some of those themes, in my writing.
Fascinating. What a coincidence.
It's funny, I remember being a bit intimidated by the montages, because I feel so often letter montages in films are, don't really work, because they're sort of not quite the right form, and yet actually I found this very liberating to shoot, because once you'd established they're writing letters, you could sort of shoot around the subject and shoot any images you felt like. I remember the scene of Frank reading the letter in the garden. I just remember it being a beautiful day, and I was shooting something else inside his house, and I just rushed out with the camera with Jim and shot those images of him with the big blue sky and the tree, because I was constantly trying to find ways to express what freedom meant for him as opposed to the constriction of jail meant for her. And there was something about that incredible, beautiful day with that sun and that blue sky that distilled what being free meant.
I was obsessed.
Next time you have a moment, try going back to church. It might be pleasant.
I mean, the other thing that we did as a general rule is when we're in the prison, we shot all the camera stuff is on the dolly, which means that the camera is completely static and very controlled. And whenever we're pretty much almost always when we're outside the prison with Jim, it's handheld, and the camera works very free and very mobile. So there's a sort of subtle sense of the difference between constraint and and a looseness in the camera work when we move between the worlds of inside and outside jail.
Father Carla.
That was Liverpool jail. We just saw that.
And last week I told him I might be looking to find a way back to the church.
The report in its entirety will cover youth activity.
He's given me the Divine Office to read every day, and the Penny Catechism.
Ah, the Penny Catechism. You might also consider reading the Confessions of St. Augustine, which are particularly good.
Anyway, Father Carlo thinks I've made progress and that we are not far away from the day when I can make a full confession.
How wonderful. Be sure to tell me what day it is, that I might pray for you myself.
What's that, Lord Longford?
This is the much-anticipated youth report, which I'm delivering to the Prime Minister today.
You've been working on it?
I've been working on it for 18 months. Any further questions? Very good. Bye.
In that scene, Jim's ability to somehow register that he's being ignored, but at the same time suppress that and try to keep a brave face on it. I mean, he's so brilliant.
Afterwards, I lay in my cell, unable to sleep. My head was spinning so. Every fibre in my body seems to want to resist this, yet a part of me cannot deny it feels so good too.
And Peter saying to me when we first spoke about it, this is a love story between the two most hated people in Britain.
Voice in my head mocking me for my hypocrisy.
And for me, this scene was sort of the centre of that, if you're looking at it through the frame of that genre. And Frank is most seduced.
Well, being able to convert someone, it's quite a controlled trip. It's very flattering. And immediately, as soon as he has power, I then wrote this scene here where all his power is taken away from him. You know, the film is a constant shifting of gears. Just when you think she's guilty, you hear something that makes you feel innocent.
Come straight to the point.
I wanted Frank to be humiliated here.
As leader of the House of Lords.
I see.
I want to thank you for everything you've done for us, Frank. You've done a terrific job over the years.
That's really one of the most enjoyable things about directing, is controlling that dance of how the audience are meant to be feeling at each stage and tracking it.
It's nothing to do with the report, is it?
What report?
The youth report, Prime Minister, that you asked me to write.
No. Nothing to do with that. I just want to give Shackleton a run. As you know, we're right up against it now. Tories have gained ground, and I've got to keep moving in politics. Fresh blood, new faces, new ideas.
Remember over this scene, you initially played his resignation speech in the House of Commons. I rather missed that. He went down guns blazing, and
Yes, he resigned over an issue, didn't he?
He attacked. I mean, he and Harold Wilson, the Prime Minister, famously didn't get on. Wilson was of a working class background, hated aristocratic socialists like Gaitskell and Longford. And it was really the start of a whole new sort of socialist movement in Britain, where suddenly the cabinet was filled with men with regional accents and working class backgrounds.
Yes. People have been very kind.
The last remaining example of a politician with principle.
Well, I'm not entirely sure many people would agree with that, but...
I'll leave the post. Not another one from Myra Hindley, by any chance? Because I've noticed she's been writing to you a lot recently.
Yes. I've been working towards her return to the Catholic Church.
Myra Hindley?
Yes. Anyway, it's not from Myra, it's from somebody else.
Remember when I first came to writing these scenes, I I just wanted to really let rip. I mean, just let rip with my writing. And Brady has 2 large scenes in the film, this being the first, and I wrote them incredibly quickly. I think I wrote them in one draft, and I have a strange desk at home. I have a desk where I stand up. It's like an architect's desk, and I remember being quite physically involved with writing this scene, and you know, it just came flying out of me, and I kept thinking I must go back and polish it, but in the end, we didn't revise it at all, so I'm left with that rather sickening thought that this stuff came rather naturally and easily to me.
Lord Longford.
Yes, I think you're right. It was probably the one thing that never changed.
Never changed. I wrote it in one draft. I wrote it in about 15 minutes. That's what's scary.
It's wonderful, isn't it, when people look exactly as you imagine. So this is my competition?
It's great to see Andy Serkis, after playing these 2 iconic heroes that required his face disappearing, in other words, Gollum and King Kong, to finally see him in person.
This is him.
The third in the trilogy of monsters.
Before our meeting, I'd say there's greater evidence of...
I did keep teasing him when we were shooting this that he shouldn't worry that I was going to replace him with the CG head of Brady, threatening to stick little mirrors on his face to do the motion tracking.
Was it the full crack-up, I wonder?
Actually, interestingly, Pete, I mean, a lot of the take we ended up using of Andy was his first take. Although we had time for 5 or 6.
I just remember how cold it was.
And it's sort of, you know, in the same way that instinctively it was your first draft, it was Andy's first draft that was always the best in the country.
This present visit is for your benefit.
You were talking earlier about how you didn't really connect with the horror of the crimes and until you were shooting those inserts for the title sequence. And an incident at the end of this scene was where I really the first time that I really properly connected with
what she cares about
with this, which is where
is getting out.
You know,
and she thinks you'll help.
Where he says mummy and daddy, and then at the end of one take I asked him if he would think of doing that in the children's voices. And when he does it in the children's voices, I remember watching it and think, you know, just being...
Self-important autobiographies only...
It's easy to write a drama many years later and just be involved in the drama, but in that moment I connected completely with what we were dealing with.
She didn't tell you she was still around to me?
No.
Oh, dear. She probably didn't tell you she was fucking that little prison officer either.
It's a particularly good Scots accent he does. I think to do a Glasgow accent is very difficult for anyone outside Glasgow, and Andy Serkis is actually, I think he's a born Londoner.
She has a very high sex drive, Aunt Myra. It's the sort of detail you might want about you.
I'm fascinated by that moment when Andy offers the letters to Frank, and Frank has a moment to... He's given the opportunity to verify whether what Andy's saying is true, and he doesn't take it. And that's so defining to me of Frank Longford in our film.
When they were wriggling and trying to get away. Wait, you can't go...
That his ability to forgive at this stage in the film is underwritten by an inability to face up to dissenting versions of Myra.
Uncomplicated ones with broken noses.
Which is what the whole, you know, the role the tape plays in the film as well.
Stay clear of Myra, because she will destroy you.
And I think that's what's so interesting about Longford's forgiveness.
Destroyed me. It's a thought you not had before. That Myra egged me on. That without her, none of it would have happened. Wait, you're not yet dismissed!
This is the bit where we're coming up to the children's voices.
And when you do listen, bear this in mind. It was her that insisted they call us Mummy and Daddy, not me.
Yeah, guess I'm comfortable with the fact that I didn't think of suggesting that.
And then to go from that moment to this beautiful shot here, Tom, that you did of Sam. Again, we've gone, and there's that crucifix and the images of Jesus Christ, and here she looks so sweet, and there's the rosary. And we're into prayer, you know, so we've gone from the purest, most violent evil to this sort of serenity. And we're wondering, how could she have done it? How could she have been involved? Can one go from these two extremes? You know, the feeling was always that Myra Hindley was a sweet, and this is a lovely moment that you did here. This wasn't scripted, so that prior to meeting him, she was a perfectly normal and sweet woman, and that the minute they were separated again, you know, she returned to normality, and that, you know, she'd just completely subsumed herself to this incredibly evil man. I love this section here, where, again, we're dealing with Catholicism, spirituality, you know, belief in God, in higher powers. Again, all very foreign to me, personally, but that's what made it so exciting to write about, really. I rang a couple of priests in the hope that they would help me, and they were so uncooperative. And I just thought, trying to do you a favour. I'm trying to write you.
Was that before or after you mentioned it was
about Frank Longford? I was trying to, you know, I was saying I want to write a story of religious conversion. You know, what would you recommend I write about, and how could you make the Catholic faith attractive to someone? And I had to do it on my own, I'm afraid.
Bless me, Father, for I have sinned.
Well, they might have suggested to pick another conversion or another convert.
It has been many
It's
years.
interesting that shot you picked out. I mean, the one thing that never comes across when you watch a film is the utter brutality of the schedules that you have to make in order to do it. And I remember that shot was achieved in the 2 minutes after 7 o'clock that I begged the crew to sort of hold on for to allow me to get it. And it ends up, you know, becoming a linchpin in that sequence. But it's amazing how those battles to get that extra thing in at the end of the day often become so vital.
And gave me a blessing. Then we went to Mass. I was given the Eucharist. I cried afterwards. I know it won't change the past or bring back those poor children. But at least I know in the eyes of God
It's interesting how we kept on not stripping away music, because, I mean, here, for example, music ended up... It was impossible for the music not to comment on the truth status of what she was saying, and it was just better
agree more.
without.
This was a particularly difficult film to score, because what you're asking an audience to... You're throwing them around, you know, you're asking them to shift allegiance, and music editorializes so much, and it's almost impossible to score invisibly. But I think we had it was a long and protracted struggle with the composer. But I think we ended up with exactly the right balance, and I love that you pulled back from music as much as you did.
And Rob Lane, the composer, I've now collaborated with 5 times, and I think in situations like this is when you really know someone well, you can it sort of helps getting there, because you can be just more honest. And I think he really did get there.
She's never once behaved in anything other than the most exemplary.
But yes, music has a tendency to oversimplify and say what the scene really means is this, which we never really wanted to say. We never wanted music to play God and tell us what we meant. This sequence is probably one of my favourite in the film, when Myra Hindley
Actually, this was the first day of shooting.
Yeah, this is the first day of shooting.
The earlier scene was Frank's first day. But this was, I remember you did this prior to the whole unit moving up to Manchester. You did this.
Yes, this was our one day in London, and as someone who lives in North London near Hampstead Heath, I'd thought about how I wanted to shoot the Heath so many times that it was a real joy to actually shoot there, because I could use ideas I'd been thinking about since I was sort of 12. There's a particular wide shot I'll point out, which I'd,
This shot here, what time of day was this? This is right at the end of the day?
It was practically night, because we'd run out of time. As it was winter, we didn't have many hours. And we did this so quick. I mean, Danny Cohen, our wonderful DP, at the end of shooting this shot, just sort of wandered off, following various extras up the hill for about 3 minutes, and a lot of this point of view subjective camera work was done brilliantly by him. There's this moment here with this kid. I just suddenly looked up and Danny was just walking up Hampstead Heath, up Parliament Hill, following this couple just off on his own tangent.
Ideally, of course, I take you to the coast.
That wide shot bridging the two scenes was the shot that I'd thought about for years.
Somewhere in Scotland. This isn't bad either.
And I thought the sound guys did a brilliant mix here. It's so aggressive and abrasive. And
Now, I want you to try something for me.
it's one of those joyous moments when you get played a scene that's been mixed and track laid and you don't change it, because they did it completely brilliantly. And this really happened, didn't it, Peter? I mean, she really was taken.
Oh, yes.
That's what's extraordinary for people who don't know
furore.
the story. I mean, it is the most extraordinary story that as a reward for good behaviour, she was taken out.
See, no one recognises you. At least there's one benefit of that awful photograph with the blonde hair. How does it feel? Wonderful. Well, this is how it will be for you one day. Walking on the heath. On your way to work, perhaps.
I like how wintry the whole thing looks and feels. That's London in January, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, this is probably one of the few times we use this handheld style on Myra, because we held back from that in every other scene inside jail.
But you'd never have got it done in time otherwise, would you? I mean, this is all, from the moment they arrived in the cars, is all one day's shooting.
Which in winter is about 7 hours.
Yeah.
Just thought you might want to see these.
It's always tricky the first day of shooting, because it always takes you 3 or 4 hours to get up to speed, and that was such a key scene, and I just really didn't want to look back on it and think, well, that was me getting up to speed rather than getting it right.
Myra Hindley being granted parole. Among those people who protested at our
Oh, this guy's great, isn't he? The guy about to come.
in a local park was Mr. Bill Palfrey, former Chief Constable of Lancashire.
And to let people out after 8 years, whether it's a walk in the park, I think is a lot of nonsense. And somebody's living in a cuckoo land. It's not the land that I've lived in for 45 years. I don't believe.
One of the challenges of using archive and intercutting archive and reality is it sets up a different order of realism in your film stuff, because, if somehow there's a shift in the makeup or the styling or the costumes or the look of it between what we filmed and the archive, you'd give away our own inaccuracy.
Because God only knows it's the only time I'm going to...
Than if you never see any reference to the period outside the world that you're inventing or creating.
Politician's going to grant me parole now.
Well, perhaps that's where I come in.
What can you do?
I can certainly explain why you were given the privilege of the walk in the first place. Your good conduct in prison, your return to the church.
She's not a smoker, Samantha Morton, and...
I think smokers might notice that.
Well, I thought she did a pretty good job. I mean, Myra Hindley, smoking killed her, famously, and smoked.
She died of emphysema.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And, was rarely without a cigarette, I think. But I mean, for a non-smoker, I think Sam did a valiant job, and I just remember this. I remember the locations. There were two things that always distinguished it for me: the coal, as I've said a million times, and the smell of Sam's artificial cigarettes.
You haven't told me.
I don't think so. Why?
It's just that I intend to be talking about you in public a great deal, and it would be awful to have any unpleasant surprises.
No.
Good.
That was another big moment in terms of just, again with the music, how much you give away, how much you say there's something going on here, and how much you refrain from saying that. Because that commitment she makes becomes very important to the sense of betrayal later on.
Lord Longford confronts...
Of course, we have to have David Frost in a Peter Morgan film.
Fortunate of spending a great many hours in Myra Hindley's company, you would appreciate how different she is to the inflammatory reports one reads in the popular press.
And here we're fitting Jim Broadbent into a real archive programme. So we replaced Frank Longford and put Jim in, and a lot of brilliant work was done matching the picture quality exactly. I was so keen for this not to feel tricksy, and I think almost the art of that is to technically do it well enough so that you're not really aware of it being a clever shot.
Whatever she has done, she is entitled to be considered for parole. Myra Hindley was an innocent young 18-year-old girl before she met Ian Brady.
This is a programme called Brass Tacks, which was, when I was researching, was one of the sort of Longford's probably most compromising moments talking about this case.
That monster. When will I get my parole? If she comes out, I'll be out for murder if I get my house.
And this is real archive.
I've said this to Lord Longford once, and I'll say it again. She will be one dead woman.
I found this so powerful, I never wanted... I mean, at one point there was talk of restaging this with an actress, and I wanted her to have her voice in the piece. From the first moment I saw it, I found it so extraordinarily powerful. This idea of her serving a sentence. When would she get parole?
This is the tape we were referring to earlier.
Yeah.
And this is his denial we've been referring to earlier. Very inconvenient.
The way he just even handles the paper like it's slightly dirty, like he's got his fingers, something sticky on his fingers. I mean, it's so clever. He uses his body brilliantly, Jim. Some screen actors are lazy with their body.
Oh, lovely. That's an interesting...
Miss Billington? Miss Billington? Could I borrow you for 2 seconds for a quick photo? Sorry. Thank you so much. Lord and Lady Longford, would you like to join the photograph? Please, sir.
No, it's not our party.
Oh, hello.
2 seconds of your time, sir. Support your daughter.
Oh, come on, why not? Come on.
Lord Longford, come on.
All right,
Really,
you say so.
thank you so much.
Lady Longford.
We were very grateful that Rachel Billington allowed us to do this scene. She was, she became a supporter of ours in the pre-production.
Lord Longford, on Brass Tacks, you told Anne West that Myra Hindley's a reformed character.
Yes, that is correct, yes.
Would you care to comment further?
Well, I haven't changed my view, if that's what you're asking.
The families of the victims have been particularly upset by this. What do you have to say to them?
And naturally, I feel the deepest sympathy for the families, but I also believe that those of us without the necessary qualifications or experience in these matters should refrain from passing judgment.
So if it were you'd put Myra Hindley back on the streets?
No, with all due respect, that is not what I said. And if you'd taken the actual time to read the article in question, you would realise that I was merely suggesting that Miss Hindley be treated fairly in comparison with other prisoners.
This scene, the taxi scene, looks very simple, but actually it's a bit of a nightmare for me because there was so little space that I was camera operating and focus pulling, which you're really never meant to do as a director because it's a very difficult thing. And let's just say some of Jim's close-up wasn't exactly sharp. But luckily just about enough was to get away with it.
I realise losing your job was a terrible...
Where were you driving around? Was this Manchester again?
No, this is then back in London.
I'm very fond of the scene. I like Lindsay's performance here.
Something else. For all our sakes.
Yes, of course.
Well, I think anyone in a marriage that's lasted longer than a few years will be familiar with this scene.
Won't happen again.
I love how Jim makes his drinking sort of painfully noisy, so that which we accentuated in the dub. That sort of lip smacking. Everything is rather awkward.
Unless there's something you need me to do here.
No, we don't need you for anything at all. Silence. Such an offensive weapon.
I'm rather proud of this scene because we basically you can never shoot in the House of Lords, so we shot plates which are basically empty shots of the Lords. We got permission to do that, and then we built the whole of House of Lords in green blocks and put them together. And what I like about it is I think you'd never ever know that we didn't do it there. And that's when I think special effects have become exciting, when they're basically completely invisible and just allow you to do things you just couldn't do. They're not self-announcing.
Now, you'll forgive me for being a pedant here, but this is clearly a London bus. But these two boys speak with Manchester accents.
Want a better look?
That's very true.
Dirty sod.
You dirty sod. Well, unless he happens to have just found two northern boys.
I know.
He famously did go on the bus, so we're not making any of this up. He didn't. There we are. That's my favourite moment in the film. I love a joke.
Yeah, and that was my brilliant. It's Melanie Oliver who thought of that cut, and whenever I see that cut, I think, I'm very pleased you edited it, Melanie. It always gets a laugh in the screen.
Yeah, well, there aren't many laughs in the film, and then we're all desperate for one, and two old people reading porn. What could be more joyful?
Nothing like so graphic. Always available. Look at it. Sexual arousal is...
HBO asked us to cut the close-up out there that we had of...
It's just in case you thought HBO was the place to put sex and swearing on screen.
They put Rome on, and then they won't let us show any tush.
I'm with Marilyn Monroe on this. When asked what she thought about sex, she thought for a moment, then said she felt it was here to stay. And if it is, then so is prostitution and
I love how Jim's performance is sort of 80%, 70% revulsion, 30% fascination.
In America, you'd be astonished at the detrimental effect it has.
If you feel that strongly about it, fine. As long as it isn't Myra Hindley.
Off he goes for another look.
Dear Frank, where are you? Another month passes and still I
A lovely contrast there of Myra Hindley with crucifixes, flowers, and Frank Longford in filthy sex shops.
Can you guess that this is the scene? This is the scene where Peter Morgan came to visit the set. There's a line that gives it away.
It's an anal stimulator.
That's a particularly good line.
It's called Peter Morgan improvisation. That's the second laugh.
This is hardcore.
Very heavily done.
Again, this is all Jim put into real archive. This is the Cambridge Union. Mary Whitehouse. John Mortimer.
Is this a show that is representative of what one gets in Denmark, in Copenhagen at the moment? I'll give this one.
That's my arm.
only assume it is because you've lost interest or...
It's a sort of hand cameo. This scene in the sex shop used to be about 4 times as long, but it kept getting shorter.
You mean at my age? No.
Oh, yeah.
they end up doing unspeakable things to each other, and Jim just keeps getting more and more aghast.
You'd have to ask some of the younger members of the audience that, or the middle-aged ones. I'm an elderly man, and you'll have to take that answer from me.
Well, I wish you good luck. Shall remember you always in my prayers. Yours, Myra.
Moors Murderer Myra Hindley has been caught...
So I think, at some point that montage was miles longer, but we spent a long time, didn't we, Peter, getting it to the right balance.
In Holloway Jail, and already a prison officer has been charged and is due to appear in court on February...
Do you sort of promise to make a sequel to this, which is the porn campaign
Longford
which we're all signed up to, yeah.
in connection with the same offence.
I can't believe you're going.
Have a heart, I'm all she's got.
She has a solicitor, hasn't she? You gave me your word. That woman just tried to break out of jail.
Perhaps that has something to do with the fact that I stopped visiting her.
Oh, with the fact that she's a hardened criminal.
Oh, come along. You're sounding like a tabloid editorial.
I like this house because it felt very lived in. Sometimes you end up in houses, filming in houses that feel like museum pieces. But it was wonderfully eccentric. With its bear and wearing a top hat in the hall.
Hello, Myra.
I'm sorry, Frank. I just got so bleak. I thought you'd given up on me.
Like that frame with the sort of tension between her head and the radiator at the bottom.
Suddenly had a vision of the fact I was going to
Blue bricks.
that I had no supporters.
Not at all, not at all.
Trisha, this idea of Brazil. There are these slums outside Sao Paulo where they're crying out for help.
What I love about this scene is it's so preposterous what she's saying. Like, and Sam does manage to sort of just about allow you to possibly believe that it possibly isn't complete rubbish what she's talking about.
What to do? It's good. And instead, I've just made everything worse.
Oh, I think she means this. I think she's... Oh, yeah. So I absolutely think she means this. I mean, if you go along with that idea of the hysteric... That,
yes,
you know, she is completely she's fallen in love with a prison warden that used to be a nun. And I would imagine this is precisely the sort of folie à deux that they've talked themselves into. That they will go away and, work with homeless children. I mean, makes perfect sense to me. By this stage, Myra Hindley was, long ensconced in many lesbian relationships, inside prison. And this one particular prison warden that she had this relationship with... Patricia, or Trish Carr, was probably the longest lasting and the deepest love affairs she had were certainly longer than Brady.
My view as an experienced prison visitor...
That shot coming up the stairs, it was meant to be an echo of Hampstead Heath. We shot it with this very narrow shutter, which makes the handheld movement very staccato. And it's sort of another moment of freedom, but in a very different context.
There are those that say you're under Miss Hindley's thrall. How would you respond to that?
Well, it may or may not be so. At least the supervising officer was present at all times to ensure that nothing untoward took place.
It's interesting when we were editing this because there was a lot of debate, wasn't there, Peter, about...
How short to make the scene?
Yes, and also whether there's a risk you can make him so unappealing that you lose people. And it's one of the hardest things to judge is, whether almost an hour into a film it is possible to lose people's sympathy like that or not.
Concurrently, I pass it in the hope that if in future, and I think it should be a remote event, people ever consider you for parole, then the activities of this case should be recorded.
I always quite like the idea of her seeing what he was like as a public advocate and somehow setting up one of the reasons for the betrayal later on.
Durham.
Oh, no.
very predictable, I'm afraid.
I had hoped for somewhere more progressive.
Darling, it couldn't be worse.
He was a lifelong jogger and had a phobia, you know, a profound aversion to the idea of becoming fat. Had obviously been fat at some point as a child.
Oh, really?
And was very vigilant about his diet for the rest of his life. Never had any puddings, never ate anything sugary, jogged well into his 80s. And always just ate sort of chicken, apparently. That's all he ate, was chicken.
I always loved that shot of him jogging up towards us. He just looks so... It's so Frank Longford. It could be no other hero.
Well, look who it is. It's Lord...
This is the second of the two scenes which I wrote so quickly that day, and I think probably of the two, I prefer this one.
Why is that?
I think what it says is more dangerous. I think the other one was more sensational. I think this one is more truthful and shocking, really. It's less violent, but it's more emotionally shocking, I think.
Myra Hindley, alone. What she will do to you, what she did to me, she will...
I found the idea of the hysteric very powerful, because I think in some ways, you know, at some level, we're all hysterics to an extent, that we all slightly adapt ourselves to the company we're in, and the idea that Myra did this to such a degree that it makes it even harder to read her in the context of this film was very interesting.
Allowed me to make representations to the Home Secretary on your behalf.
Because I'm not completely insane. If I wanted to set my cause back a decade or two, if I wanted to be denied all exercise, if I wanted to have them...
Of course, the one thing that you can never do on film successfully is show someone trying to die from a hunger strike, because sadly you can't get Andy to lose half his weight over a 2-day shoot.
Hysteric. That's what she is. Are you familiar with the term in its strict clinical use?
No.
An hysteric is someone who gives to people, reflects back to them that which they believe makes them most acceptable, most likable, what they think others want to see. And Myra Hindley is a classic hysteric.
And that's what I think is so brilliant in your script, Pete, that the man who theoretically should be the most unreliable source ends up saying, you know, some of the clearest, most insightful things about Myra, and if Frank just listened to Brady, he would have had a very different course.
To me, she was a brutal sadist and a cruel killer.
But then you throw in this and you think, and then again you're confused about whether to take him truthfully or not.
Why did you insist on her innocence in the trial?
Because I loved her. How could you not love a girl like that?
I very consciously used very extreme close-ups in scenes like this.
Come on, Frank.
I think this is a music cue that I object to. This music cue doesn't do what I wanted it to do. I wanted... This music cue is a little sinister, and I wanted that to be softer. When he's talking about loving her, I think it would be more dangerous to almost make
score that rather than...
score that. And this feels to me like we're telling an audience that what we're watching is creepy, and that makes me detach from it slightly. I wanted this to just be about two men who are in love with the same woman.
Save me.
Yes, we're not lovers of being on the nose, are we?
Elizabeth?
There's the bear with the hat. That's all right, Justin. That's the first time I've ever noticed it.
Elizabeth?
here.
Amazing what you learn doing a DVD commentary.
Oh, there you are. What are you doing?
I've been reading
Always, as a storyteller, I always breathe a sigh of relief when we get to this scene because it's such a radical change in direction of the narrative, and it just feels that it's exactly the moment that you want a fresh impulse, a story to take a new direction. I've always, my whole life, wondered what twin set and pearls are, but that is what twin set and pearls are. I actually, during one of the screens, I turned around to someone and said, "Is that a twin set and pearls?" That's the Queen. Helen Mirren is dressed in that same sort of costume for a number of scenes in The Queen, and it's the staple, as it were, of gentility, female gentility. Twin set and pearls, country ladies.
Read her letters and found them very interesting. And was thinking how much I'd like to meet her.
Actually, Lindsay captures that period English voice very well. That's
Very well. Very crisp, very authentic. Look at that. Would you want to go to jail there?
That's Manchester.
Passport and visiting order, please.
Decaying Victorian prisons, right out of a Dickens story.
A visiting order.
As a member of the House of Lords, I don't need a
I like Jim's irritability here.
Good morning.
It's all so cold.
I don't really remember it being
cold. Well, I remember you had a very big coat.
Yes, it's always a good trick.
Yeah, you have a huge coat. I had coat envy for the entire shoot. Every time I looked at your coat, I thought, oh, I wish I had that coat.
Lady Longford to take her coat off. Ridiculous. I wouldn't like you to be smuggling anything.
No, I like these sort of very graphic, just two-tone shots like that.
I don't understand. I can only see male prisoners.
This is really unusual in Durham because you have a women's section inside a men's section.
Yes.
And this is a tour de force from Sam, I think.
Yeah,
it's quite extraordinary what she does.
It's a wonderful, wonderful scene, this. Wonderful scene. In terms of her performance. I mean, it's really hard to imagine she was stone cold sober when doing this. But then I constantly marvel at what actors can do and what you can ask them to do.
Be quiet! Where's your humanity? Silence! Goodness sake. There, Myra. Myra? Myra?
She's up for that.
Myra?
It's okay, she can hear you. It's just the medication.
Also things like drunk acting and drugged acting, I mean, they really sort... they're one of those things that actually is incredibly
separates
difficult
the
to do.
girls from the ladies.
How do you do?
And also this, in terms of this flow of how people feel about Myra Hindley as a character, almost everyone,
Enjoying your book.
in screenings gets very shocked by this. So just at the moment you want to hate her again, you get pulled the other way.
But they wouldn't let me bring it here. They've taken all my books. Levelled him. They just came one day. Men with guns. In a helicopter.
Myra?
What have they given her?
The liquid cosh, we call it.
It's actually very difficult to get to shoot in real prisons, and this was another space we found in Manchester that wasn't actually a prison. But I mean, the prison service were hugely helpful to us, but it takes so long to get everyone in and out of the airlock.
A lot of the women in here are mothers, you can imagine. People have smeared shit.
But it was sort of essential to get into real prisons because the atmosphere is so specific, and it really informed how I shot things, even when I wasn't actually in the real place.
Oh, egg sweets.
It's horrific.
There's a real sense of leaving the world behind when you go into prison. I mean,
yes.
It's just you're in that universe, and the other world does not matter.
Yes. I think you get institutionalised in the space of an afternoon. People say it takes a couple of years. That's you're miles from anywhere.
How long has she been in prison now?
14 years.
And here on this scene, I had this idea of shooting on this track with tunnels, so that there's this constant zooming in of the dark down the length of the perspective of the carriage and over Lindsay's face.
You said the trial judge made a distinction between her case and Ian Brady's.
I quote, "Though I believe Brady is wicked beyond belief, I cannot feel the same is necessarily true of Hindley once she is removed from his influence." End of quote.
Really?
Who, between the wars, converted more people to Catholicism.
How's the Queen Mother coming along?
Rather slowly, I'm afraid. I've got bogged down researching something else.
And these two scenes sort of represent the case for the defence, really, most eloquently. Don't they, Pete? In terms of what this Elizabeth sees, which could possibly...
Well, Elizabeth's journey here entirely mirrors my own. And that's why it was so useful to write it.
And I must say...
And the points she makes here, regardless of what you may think about the woman's crimes,
about the nature of sadomasochistic relationships.
there comes a point where,
Isn't it an
a prisoner is treated entirely unequally because of her gender and
who mirrors their own father?
becomes a political prisoner. So regardless of what you may think of the crimes or about her as a woman,
It makes perfect sense.
you have to support her.
Repeat the pattern with Ian Brady, who subjected her to the most appalling cruelty, beating her.
One of the people who's very helpful was we went to see someone who'd visited Myra Hindley and who was very interesting talking about her, and this idea which Elizabeth touches on about her crime being one of obsession I found very interesting, which is this person said that Myra Hindley viewed her worst crime as one of obsession, in that she became so obsessed with Brady, her greatest fear was to lose him, and she was willing to do almost anything to bind herself to him more strongly. And this person we talked to said that, in fact, this quite often happens in relationships, but to a much lesser degree when a woman ends up doing things she'd never previously have conscienced because she's so scared that if she doesn't, the man will walk away. People compromise their value system, and what happened with Myra Hindley was the most extraordinarily bizarre and extreme version of a woman compromising their value system to be who their man wanted them to be.
Isn't a story. Incidentally, in each case, the men have also been paroled. Note, the reason Myra Hindley is still in jail and has never been considered for parole is because she is a woman. And for that reason, she will always have my understanding, if not my sympathy.
So when did you go to the Public Records Office?
When I said I was going to the Bodleian.
And Governor Wing, when did you visit her?
When I said I was having lunch with my agent.
So now I must add mendacity to your many virtues. And you'd have me continue my campaign?
Yes. And not rest until she gets parole. Have you spoken to Willie about it?
Whitelaw? No, not one-to-one, no.
then I suggest you do that.
What a very good idea. I don't think I've ever loved you quite so completely as I do now.
A new high.
Off the charts. Top of the pops. It is a bed, woman.
I've got to get my dressing gown on.
I've got to take my shoes off.
Oh. The Home Secretary will see you now.
Thank you so much.
This is a kind of, these two old farts, there's a kind of generation of politician that absolutely no longer exists in Blair's Britain, and the kind of social revolution that's happened in the last 15 years in the upper echelons of power. In Britain, you only get reminded of it when you see a scene like this again. You think, well, this is pretty recent. This was in the 80s. And this scene will never, ever, ever happen again in Whitehall. And this sort of a politician is now just a dinosaur. It's Jurassic Age.
For me? What harm could that do? And couldn't she be moved somewhere better? Durham is insufferable.
I'll see what I can do.
If anyone deserves to be in a
Frank.
The idea of sherry drinking classical scholars in chalk-striped suits. Nowadays, it's it's Blackberries, Starbucks.
Maybe you should take a back seat.
The leather armchairs and come in, old chap, have a sherry. It feels like a million years ago.
But also this issue of the Home Secretary having some discretionary power over prisoners in this way. One of the legal reforms that came out of Myra Hindley's case and many others was that a Home Secretary is no longer able to revise upwards the life term of a prisoner because it's politically inexpedient to allow them to be paroled. So in other words, any Home Secretary who allowed Myra Hindley to be freed would become instantly unpopular and therefore would never do it. And the law's been changed so that that decision rests with the judiciary.
We filmed the Ian Brady scenes with Andy Serkis over a 2-day period. That was all we had him for.
I know, it's extraordinary, isn't it?
It's extraordinary.
When you think it took, he said it took me sort of 2 years to do King Kong and 3 years to do Gollum, and I walk in, do 2 days' work, and play the monster in this, and it's
and then for a lot of people, I mean, when I say runs away with the film, but I mean he makes an extraordinary powerful impact.
He makes as powerful an impact within the context of this film as he did in the other two.
You are about to get a story on the front page of every paper in the country. Word has reached me.
And this was something that evolved through the prep period, didn't it? I mean, this in the first draft I read, this wasn't there, and this came later on. Because you talked about the fact that the first 2 Brady scenes came very quickly.
Yes, this is one that was added later, and and I then fought for it. I mean, there was some attempt to try and take it out, but I was passionate about keeping it. I think, I don't know whether it's the rule of 3 that you have to have things in 3s, but it would have felt incomplete having just 2 scenes.
Yes, it's a great payoff.
Morning, Lord Longford.
Good morning.
This was a reshoot, wasn't it? And very helpful.
Yeah.
Just to let us know a little bit more about what the state of mind was, and so to make the reversal that comes up. It was your idea that I write that scene. It's a very good one.
The night you wanted. I couldn't remember what colour you are.
But it's trying to have enough of his happiness before the fall. I spent a lot of time just trying to intensify the sadness of this moment, and I think in the first cut it just wasn't emotional enough.
I'm thrilled in this scene. She looks most like the Myra Hindley that I was hoping for and expecting to see physically. I mean, not in terms of her performance. I think her performance is wonderful, but here she's allowed herself. Sam's allowed herself to toughen up. And
What do you mean? What other bodies?
Pauline Reed.
the hardness here.
He hasn't given them any details yet. But he says he knows where they're buried. And before he grabs...
So this, when I was shooting this scene, Jim, the take we're using of Jim was the first take, and very, very rarely for me, I actually it brought a tear to my eye when he did that first performance. But then I remained slightly haunted by that, because when it makes you cry shooting it, and then you're sitting in the cut thinking, fuck, why isn't it moving me as much when I shot it? And the whole thing becomes an exercise in trying to get back to that one experience you had when you were filming it.
Dear girl, I asked you specifically if there was anything you hadn't told me.
Ironically, I think I'm right in saying, Peter, in the real story of Longford, the finding out that she wanted to confess was a positive to Frank. And in terms of the chronology of the story, her confession and her saying, "I don't want you to represent me," were separated in time.
The campaign that you've conducted on my behalf.
And I think that was, a necessary compression of time to put those two moments at the same point and make them both negative. But I mean, this film sits in a very close relationship with historical fact, and it might interest people to know that that's one of the areas where we've blended something. I think she dropped him as a lawyer. I think 2 or 3 years after this confession. Dropped him as a lawyer. Dropped him as her advisor.
Well, she didn't drop, she just asked him not to visit her anymore.
But then the next Frank Longford was David Astor, heir to the Astor fortune, Nancy Astor's son. I mean, she had an extraordinary ability to pull, heavyweight people into helping her. And we did something on the soundtrack where I just got people to repeat Myra Hindley sort of in different voices over and over, which sort of slowly build up in a slightly weird way.
So that's the real helicopter. That's the real footage of them, Myra out looking for the bodies, and then you intercut some footage that you shot there.
Well, I was operating on this shot, and I think on the second take of that sort of track up to her face, I fell over and ended up bringing the camera down very hard on her knee.
I recognise the rock behind you. Yes, I'm certain.
Hindley led the police to areas she
That's again the original footage.
20 years ago. In a pub 2 miles away, Pat Kilbride, whose son John was murdered 21 years ago. He'd come armed with a knife but was stopped at a roadblock.
Trying to say,
This is extraordinary, this image, I think.
She's confessed that she is guilty of participating in these crimes, so that she would be guilty of the crime of murder, yes.
One of the justifications given for keeping Myra Hindley in prison was that, it was for her own benefit, that would she ever be paroled, that she'd be shot or murdered within seconds of leaving prison.
Insisted on meeting her.
But she also went on record on saying that, that would be her right, and the actual act of being free, even if it was just for a short moment, would be more important than anything else. So that even the argument for keeping her in prison to protect her isn't a legitimate one if the prisoner then is prepared to, as it were, take that risk.
I'll call the police. Get rid of the photographers.
It's interesting that the source that I was talking about earlier, who talked to us about Myra, said that, when we asked this person, was Myra Hindley ready to be let out? And that person said that Myra Hindley was so fixated on the episode, on her celebrity, she'd become so obsessed with being capital M, capital H, Myra Hindley, that Myra Hindley needed to somehow let go of the need to be the famous Myra Hindley before she was ready to have an anonymous life.
During which time much has changed. My actions have hurt my family, my friends, not to mention the families of the victims.
Now, this is an interesting scene, Peter.
Yes, I had...
Now
There's an English version of this film, and in the English version, we didn't include this scene.
His strength.
I think it was just a sort of...
And above all, his compassion.
It was just, I suppose, a disagreement between, you know, the American and the, you know, British broadcasters, and
I beseech you.
I felt it wasn't necessary to have this scene.
Forgive me. And give me some...
I think it's the difference in, you know, if you don't have it, then when you come to the radio station, you're wondering, how did he recover? How did he get to this point? And then in the radio station, you find out how he made that journey. Whereas if you go this way, it's a little more literal, I suppose, because you're seeing that he's coping with it, and you're showing the journey, not revealing it. So we always had an issue in the film about, are there too many endings? Are there too many? You know, once the betrayal has happened, that's, you know, the central narrative event is done, and you're basically winding up, and it's. There was a debate about whether that was one scene too many. And the tape scene's interesting because originally, you know, for a long time we weren't sure whether we could actually have anything on the tape apart from just having a soundtrack playing music, but I always passionately believed we needed to hear something of Myra Hindley, or our actors playing Myra Hindley and Brady talking, even if it wasn't related to the actual text of the transcript of the tape itself. Because, I don't know, I mean, if this scene is all about Frank Longford facing it, you know, I think the audience need to face it to some extent, but we obviously completely moderated the extent to which anyone had to face the content of it, because if you played it, you know, accurately, it would be unlistenable to. But it always felt to me somehow a cheat if it was just music score. And we specifically screened the film for the families of the victims that wanted to come in order to make sure we had their approval about doing it.
So many questions to ask you, such a long and distinguished career. But I'm going to start with the book. What prompted you to write it?
Well, as a lifelong Christian and scholar, I've always been interested in ideas of sanctity. But more than that, I think it was probably the entirely selfish desire to spend a little time with my heroes.
Do you have a favourite?
When the tape scene replays, it replays in a slightly different length and with slightly different content. And it was a big jump in the editing when we realised we'd, you know, at the beginning, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as the end.
Dismas of Calvary, the thief crucified next to Jesus. I've always been drawn to outcasts, to people on the fringes of society, and St. Dismas, having spent most of his life as a...
I always loved this speech. I remember when I first read the script, I was thinking, you know, obviously originally used to be up the top of the film, and I remember thinking, you know exactly what sort of film you're getting if you have this speech.
Right, the time is coming up to 20.
Or there's no hiding how esoteric the man is.
David, what's your question about the saints?
I want to know how your esteemed guest can look himself in the mirror each morning.
I'm assuming this is a question about Myra Hindley.
How could you rub salt in the wounds of the families like that? Campaigning on behalf of that monster?
Yes, well, I certainly take exception to that description. But I made it quite clear before coming on this programme that I would not be answering questions about Miss Hindley today.
Of course. Next caller is Judy, who's in Sheppey.
My call is also about Miss Hindley. In view of everything we now know about her, don't you regret having supported her all that time?
Once again, madam, I'm afraid I must decline to answer questions about
It's a
her.
simple answer, Lord Longford. Yes or no. Do you regret it?
And then we return to the question that was posed at the beginning of the first scene in the film.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, I consider my visiting Myra Hindley, and indeed All the other prisoners I visited...
And we did one more day's extra shooting, and I think we picked up a different way of ending this scene, didn't we, Peter?
Mm-hmm. With this speech coming up now, I added a bit later on when people wanted to hear more. This one coming up now.
Yeah, this is it.
Yes, perhaps there's some truth in that. Forgiving her has proven difficult, very difficult.
Again, this is, the sort of writing that excited me and, made me want to write this in the first place. So I was delighted to be able to add this.
Yeah, this part of the reshoot was really great.
Forgiveness is the very cornerstone of my faith. And the struggle to deepen my faith is my life's journey. So in that respect, she has enriched my spiritual life beyond measure.
I had to push Jim so hard to be emotional in this scene because he was so caught up in Longford's brisk delivery of everything.
If people think that makes me weak or mad, so be it. That is the path I am committed to.
Yes, the extent to which Jim makes himself emotionally available, as Frank, is probably...
Love the sinner,
I think Frank was more uncompromising.
Assume the best in people.
But it was essential. It is essential.
To believe that anyone, no matter how evil...
It's a brilliant bit of writing.
...can be redeemed. Eventually.
It's one of those ones where you never know whether to take it as an insult or a compliment, but people often come up to me and say, so, that speech at the end, which radio programme did you get that from? And I stare at it.
I just think the whole thing's a lift.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That's very funny. But also, what's interesting is it's so... Again, just when Frank has undermined himself in our eyes so many times, he makes that speech, and you can't help being very excited by the way he talks about forgiveness, even though his own ability to forgive is sometimes underwritten by a refusal to look at the facts squarely in the face.
You must be mad. You're too old for this.
And we did try ending the film on the radio station at one point.
Local from now on.
But I think me and Peter both felt that the film needed that final scene between them, and thank God we went that way.
A relationship isn't over until it's over.
Jim washed
relationship doesn't start until it
stones in his shoes to get that uncomfortable walk. I mean, he does do, for a man, he does do old age utterly brilliantly. I mean, you forget how young and vigorous Jim is when you watch this.
Goodness. How well you look.
Rubbish.
Well, he's playing a man of, 92 here, and Jim is, 56?
Yeah.
Well, you still look wonderful.
The compromise of this scene is that it became... Jim's face was able to take prosthetic very well. So, I mean, Jim is wearing a full face of prosthetics there to age him up, and it works beautifully. And because Sam's skin is so good and so youthful, prosthetics always looked ridiculous on it. So we weren't able to age her up as much as she should be. I mean, in reality here, she should be in her late 40s, early 50s, Peter.
The bit that I've always been upset about in this scene, because it's just how beautiful her makeup is.
Yeah.
I feel that the hair looks fantastic because, she is a woman close to death. And there go the cigarettes again, folks. Don't smoke if you want to keep your hair.
That's the reason you made this film, Peter.
But
Tell you everything, Frank.
even in jail, even had she, I mean, I remember writing the stage direction, she's put on makeup, but that isn't prison makeup. That is professional makeup, and I think prison makeup is almost touching in its mess.
Crudity.
Really. Yeah, in its crudity. Yeah.
Full confession before God. Was that a lie too?
We're sort of coming to one of the pivotal points in the film here, where you and I were in disagreement, and, I'm happy to say you were entirely right and persuaded me. This line coming up now.
On the moors, in the moonlight, when we did the first one. And you'd know that evil can be a spiritual experience too.
Yes, the film had up to this point defined spiritual in terms of good, and I felt it was terribly important to define the opposite experience, and Myra Hindley's only spiritual, one verifiable spiritual experience of her life, as she talks about it in this scene, is of the presence of evil, and her tragedy is that she's wanted to connect with a good God but never had that experience. Her only one true spiritual experience was of its opposite. And this came from a very, this speech comes from a conversation with a very good source about Myra Hindley, and Peter wrote it quite early on, and I almost wrestled him to the floor on a couple of occasions to keep it in.
Being hanged, I would never have had the privilege of getting to know you.
I also think there's a central question is, in the end, did she get a buzz from it? Did she, in the end, get pleasure from being involved in the process, or was it all hateful to her? And I think this scene takes a position on that.
Must be rather a nice place to be.
Where?
Inside your head.
I'm not so sure about that.
Oh, a fine pair we are.
Yes.
Love that tree contrasted against the prison fence. Complete stroke of luck we found that location in the prison. And then we're back on the moors in Shiny Brook when the fifth body was never found, with the mist slowly revealing it.
That's midsummer, isn't it?
Yeah, that is midsummer.
Well, many people think you're planning a holiday to Manchester. That photograph is worth bearing in mind. If that's summer, what would winter be like?
Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.